Okay, it says it's recording. Let's see how this works. I'm just getting really creative here. It's recording on my phone, so you'll see me on here twice. Does anybody have any weird feedback with the sound or anything like that? Okay. Okay. Good morning. Good afternoon for some of you. I'm so glad that you're here with me, testing this out. I've taught a lot over Zoom, but never in this exact way. So this is an experiment for all of us. And if you haven't yet, will you mute your audio? And if you go down to the bottom left of your screen, you should see a little mute button there, and just make sure it has an X through it, only because I will love for everyone to share. But because we're using the internet, sometimes there's feedback that happens if we have more than one audio line open at a time. So that sounds good to me now. But if anyone at any moment has a difficulty hearing or seeing or anything like that, if something's not working for you, there is a chat. So down at the bottom, if you click, I just see a little talk bubble that says chat. You can chat with us and let us know what's happening for you, and I'll check those periodically. Okay. Trying to get everything set up on my screen here. And that's what's recording. Okay, I'm getting my brain wrapped around how we're doing this here. Thank you guys for your patience. Okay, and I hear people joining. If you can mute your audio as you...
A V and an I?
Okay, like that, right? That's it.
No, that's a 4.
I could mute everyone on entry.
That's it. So I'm looking at a watch. And it has...
Is it, I think, M. Barnett?
Like it has Roman number 6.
We can hear your room. Can you mute yourself?
It's a 6 and it's a 4.
I wish I could do it for her. Are you able to hear me, M. Barnett? Oh gosh. I really want to make this work for everyone. Okay. M. Barnett, are you able to hear me? I see you on my screen. I'm going to try to mute on entry. Okay. Participants mute all. I did it. Okay. Thank you guys so much for your patience. Okay, I think we're good. Good morning. So, put on your raincoat. This is what we're here for. And I want to first just kind of orient you to what we're doing and what this is all about. Just trying to get this set up on my screen now. Okay, great. Okay, so hopefully you're in the right place. Right now, I'm not able to see all of you. So the way that you can let me know that you want to say something is to chat in the chat box, or there's a way to raise your hand if you go into the participants list. So those will be the ways to communicate for right now. So good morning. I am Bree Hall. I'm in Portland, Oregon. So it is morning here for me, but I know it's afternoon for some of you. Thank you for being here live. Thank you for everybody who's watching later, who's here with us. I'm just so excited to share this information. So let's get started. We're kind of figuring out Zoom here together. I have a different setup than I usually do, and you guys may be using this for the first time. So get familiar with your mute button in the bottom left corner. When we do have dialogue, then that's what you'll use to talk. I want to really empower everyone and encourage you all to take care of yourselves during this time together. We have 3 hours. You might need to use the bathroom. You might need to stretch or change positions or get more water. Please do that. There will be several, like I said, this is a very introspective workshop. And so there will be several periods where you'll have time to write. And that's also a great time to run and do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. We won't be having an official break so that we can just get the CEUs in this amount of time, but there will be moments where there will be a lull and you can use those to your advantage. Some things to have available with you: please have paper and pen. You may want tissues. Sometimes this work brings up emotions, and that's great. That's what we're trying to get at here. If you have essential oils, grab them, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. And then also just make sure you have lots of water, always important. We did a little bit with Zoom, and I just want to introduce myself then. And I have my notes here in front of me, so I apologize for looking down. I've got everything here, so I just make sure I hit all the points that I want to include. I am an interpreter. I've been an interpreter for almost 20 years now. And I became a life coach, I don't know the amount of years, but it's probably 6 or 7 years ago now, because I was facing my own form of burnout, which was physical for me. It really manifested in my body. And I don't know if others of you have experienced this, and maybe you can feel free to use the chat as a way to connect with each other. And so go ahead and write in the chat if you have had pain in your body also from interpreting. So a lot of us show up with neck pain, shoulder pain. It's not right above our shoulder blade here, shoulder, elbow, wrist, fingers even. It's really common for interpreters because we use those joints so much. But what we're finding, and what I found through my own healing journey, is that a lot of the pain that can manifest, that can show as a symptom of burnout and maybe overwork, is also related to emotions that we're holding in our body, especially in places where we tend to carry tension, which often is in our shoulders. Anytime we disrupt our spinal column and the muscles around it, the nerves around it, that then goes down into our extremities. So we won't be getting too much into the ergonomics or the physical aspect of it, but my hope is that this information helps to get at the root of those problems for you and can be one part of your healing. I see, yes, I've been experiencing wrist, arm, and body pain since last year. Yeah, well, know that you're not alone, and this may be a piece of that healing for you. So in addition to this workshop, and I hope to be offering more of these, just kind of little short workshops online that we can do together. I travel with Terp Expo, and so I may have met a lot of you at one of those. I just love getting to be, in all various parts of the country and hearing what interpreters deal with all over the country. And it's really the same. You guys, we're all going through the same things. So a big part of my message and the reason why I do this work is so that we each know that we're not alone, in all of these things that we're going to talk about, but the manifestations of burnout really, and the ways that we try to protect ourselves. You're not alone, okay? I do coaching work with interpreters, and we start with a lot of this stuff, a lot of this painful stuff that's showing up in our bodies, in our lives, and other aspects of our lives because we're affected by our work, or our home life is affecting us and making it challenging to go to work. We're not separate people in each place. We're one whole person, taking ourselves and taking our each part of our lives. We're kind of mixing it all together in a mixing bowl, and so it's all interrelated. So I do coaching work with interpreters on issues of burnout, really working on self-care, and that's really what this all comes down to, is how can we take better care of ourselves so that we can go out into the world and do the things that we want to do, live our purpose, be who we're meant to be in our families, in our communities, in our work life. So that's the goal here. So as we get into this information that we're here to learn about today, put on your raincoat, energetic protection for sign language interpreters. I just want to talk about, in general, what happens for us as interpreters. We are conduits. And I know it's a little bit of a loaded term in our profession because that was a model of interpreting that we have gotten away from, right? We're not machines. We're not just transmitting words back and forth. But we are a line. We are a conduit for communication and everything that entails. So that is emotions, that is power dynamics, that is thoughts and feelings and opinions and experiences. We are transmitting that information. And so what happens as we're going into our work, and we often, interpreters are big-hearted people. Like, we, for the most part, are on the end of the spectrum that is intensely compassionate, intensely caring, and can feel others' pain and struggle. And we want to be helpful. And so when we go into these situations where we are really taking on so much of what's coming through us, how do we stay open-hearted in the world when we are when we're getting bogged down in all this stuff that we're witnessing, that is coming through us, and even just the day-to-day toll of that? It may not be a super traumatic job that you had, but as you are passing people's communication back and forth, and in little ways, it's triggering and stirring up things in you that may be unresolved, things from your past, things that bring up feelings for you. As those get stirred up, the stuff that you're passing through actually gets stuck inside. And I've got some visuals later for that. And this ends up showing up then as we're taking this stuff on. It could be as physical pain, could be as depression, as anxiety, as weight gain, as low sex drive. It could be all of these seemingly unrelated aspects of our lives that really are because we're taking on other people's stuff and we don't know what to do with it. So this is, the title says energetic protection. This is about the transmission of energy. So more than words, more than those, the linguistics of what we do. This is about the energy of what we do, the emotions involved, the charge that's there for us. That's what this helps to deal with. And what it really comes down to is that each of us gets to decide, how worthy are we of our own care? How worthy are we of going in and helping ourselves to process, to release, to not take more on? Like, do we make that a priority, or do we just force ourselves to keep going, keep doing it? You know, this is your work. You can't stop. This is your job. This is your income. Yes. And how do we do that in a way that's sustainable? So hopefully this will help get to a piece of that for each of you. Okay. So the 3 key practices that we're going to talk about today, and you guys, this is just a part of, this is not limited to these 3 practices, but I've tried to distill this down into 3 things that we can touch on today as a great place to start. So practices for living a more peaceful life as a sensitive person. And you may or may not identify as a sensitive person. And as an interpreter, I would argue that we are all sensitive, that we are all very tuned into other people's meta-linguistic information, their emotions, their affect, their body language and facial expression. We are cued in a way that maybe other people aren't, because we're always extrapolating information from all of these, for everything we have available to us, we're using. And so by definition, we are sensitive. So the three practices that we're going to talk about today are self-reflection, self-compassion, and mindfulness. So self-reflection, noticing what's going on, what's happening inside, what's happening outside, just being aware. This is self-awareness, and then taking that self-awareness a step further to not only analyze, but to be with that information. So that just has to do with looking at, how am I feeling? What's bothering me? What's going well? What do I need? Those kinds of questions. The second area, self-compassion. Once we notice what's happening with us, with ourselves, we want to not make any of that wrong or bad or judge it. That's where we can, we may have the awareness and go, oh, this is how I'm feeling. And then we can immediately attack ourselves. Well, you shouldn't be feeling that way. Others have it worse than you. This is your job. Really putting up a barrier to allowing ourselves to feel whatever it is we're feeling, so that we can move through that more smoothly. And then the third, daily mindfulness. Having time to ourselves, to be with ourselves every day. And that's what the practice that I'm going to leave you with is, as you already know. Okay, before we go on, let me see how I can do this. I'd love to see if there are any questions. And like I said, I can't see everyone at the same time. So please go ahead and type in the chat just any comments that you have, or if you have a question, you can just type question and I'll find you and you can talk. And if you're good, just give me a good or a thumbs up in the chat so I can just make sure we're all still together. This is different than seeing everybody in person in front of me. And hopefully everybody can use the chat too. Good, okay, I see good. Yeah, the first of the three bullets, self-reflection. Awesome, yay, thank you. Okay, cool, let's move on. So we're gonna do a visualization exercise now to help us get into this space, get our first experience of some self-reflection on some of this stuff. So I want you to get comfortable. You can sit wherever you can hear me is fine, on the floor, on a chair, wherever it feels, you feel grounded and supported. If your feet are on the floor, then really plant them. Feel all four corners of your feet on the floor. Feel where your body comes into contact with the chair. Try and have a nice straight back. Doesn't have to be rigid, but just feel your skeleton really holding you up. Okay. And you can soften your gaze to look down in front of you, or you can close your eyes if you feel comfortable. I want you to just tune into your breath. I know we all came from somewhere this morning. You were doing something before this. So just invite you to let that be. Just set your morning aside and feel yourself right here in this space together with us. As much as you can, bring your breath down into your belly. Take a few breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. feel yourself just letting go of some stuff. You don't have to force anything, but just feel that old air leaving your body. Now you can allow your breath to return to normal. Just follow it. Just notice. Where do you feel it entering? You might notice where it enters through your nose. Feel the air rush through there. You might notice your belly expanding, your rib cage expanding and relaxing. While you're in this space of just being with yourself and with your body right now, I want you to call to mind an interpreting experience that you've had that was emotionally challenging for you. And you might just automatically feel some things happen in your body, and that's okay. Just let whatever comes, just let it be there. We're here together. You're not alone. But we want to try to see the people or the person involved in this scenario. See the deaf person. See or hear the hearing person. Remember what they said to each other. Take in their facial expressions, maybe the tone of voice, the manner of signing, their body postures. Remember what you interpreted, the words you used, what came through you. Remember how that felt. And notice, is there tension? Do your shoulders rise up to your ears? Is your neck tense? Maybe you're breathing shallow. There might be a knot in your belly or a lump in your throat. Just feel around in your body, trying to remember what it felt like to be in this situation. Just explore those sensations, kind of like a scientist, like a person just gathering information. I want this memory to be stimulated in you for the purpose of the exercise, but it doesn't need to feel overwhelming. So if you need to soften your experience a little bit, I want you to just shift your focus for a moment back to your feet. Feel where they come into contact with the ground. And connect back to your breath. And as you have a clear picture of what this was like for you, you can just come back to your body. You can wiggle your fingers and toes. Maybe take another deep breath and let it out of your mouth. Remember that we're right here together. We're not in that space with those people. But we want to use that. We want to use that information now for good. We want to use it to help heal ourselves, to help maybe find a new way of dealing with those intense emotions. And if you weren't able to call up a specific example, I trust that you have some example of feeling tension and feeling stress in your body that you can work with. So with your pen and paper now, I want you to write down some answers to these next questions. So think about and write about, and we're going to share also, what sensations did you experience in your body? What thoughts came to mind? What memories or experiences from your own life did this situation stimulate? When you were there as an interpreter, maybe it reminded you of something when you were a kid. Maybe it reminded you of something from a past relationship. So what memories of your own life were stimulated by this? What did you want to have happen in that situation? So sometimes as we're interpreting, we look upon a situation and we go, oh God, I just wish that this person would speak kindly to the other person. I just wish that children weren't abused. I just wish that this person didn't have cancer. Often we can find a place in us that is wanting something different than what is actually happening. Yeah, thank you, M. Barnett. And I'd love to know your name too. Would you type your name? Or I can call you M. Barnett, that's fine. Maida, am I saying that right? She says, frustrated at feeling not good enough and tense in my shoulders. Yeah. Let's see, what else do we have here? How did this, Maida, thank you, Maida. How did this internal experience that you're having in this situation, how did it affect your interpreting? So as you are feeling triggered, as you're feeling tense, as you're noticing, I don't want this to be happening, or they shouldn't be saying that to the other person, how does that affect your ability to do your job? And then lastly, how might those reactions that you're having in your body affect your consumers through your interpreting? And I love the sharing that's going on here. And if anyone wants to speak their responses, to share their responses, I would love that. And you can just unmute yourself and start talking, because I can't see you. But I'll read some of these responses too from the chat. So Angie says, shoulder and back pain, feeling a fraud. Where can I go, hide, and protect myself? Yeah. And Maiva says, it blocked my mind. I couldn't process anything and froze. Yes, that, and we can identify that right there as our beautiful amygdala, our beautiful limbic response that protects us from tigers. But in a situation like this, having that fight, flight, or freeze response be activated prevents our prefrontal cortex from doing its job, which we so desperately need while we're interpreting. Yeah, we're not able to process anything else beyond that, or maybe not at the level that we want to be. Anyone else want to share anything you noticed in this visualization? Feel free to keep sharing. So I'm going to go on here. We think about ourselves as conduits then. Merriam-Webster defines conduit as a channel through which something is conveyed. So that is what interpreters are. We are a channel through which communication is conveyed, right? And as an emotional and energetic conduit, we are, in addition to linguistic information, to the words and the signs that we see and hear, we are transmitting emotional information. We are transmitting the affect, the way that someone is feeling in their body. We're trying our very best to portray that accurately, which means that it physically travels through us. Physically, we take that on in order to represent it, to display it to someone else. And what happens is, the more emotional healing that we have done, the more we have worked through our own stuff, our own baggage, our own, and not baggage in a negative way, but the things that we carry through this life that we could set down, that we have the ability to release, but that we haven't quite worked through yet. The things that still bring us pain and may always bring us pain. The goal is not to be without pain. But the more we have done this work, the more self-awareness that we've developed, the less impact that this residual energy is going to have on us, the less places we have that are sticky, that hold on to that stuff. It's kind of like emotional healing and self-awareness are like a raincoat that give us a slicker, that give us a way to pass that stuff back and forth and not take it on. Really protects us from the emotional and energetic charge. And again, the goal is not for us to be robots. The goal is not for us to be untouched and unscathed and unaffected by our work or by other humans. That's not the goal. The goal is for this to be sustainable. You know, like a car engine, it takes abuse. It takes, you might drive really fast. You might have to brake really quickly. You ask a lot of the inner workings of your vehicle, and in return, you take care of it. You maintain it. You get the oil changes. You get the brake fluid changed. You make sure that it has what it needs to keep doing the work that you want it to do. That's the same for our bodies. We just want to keep taking care of ourselves so that we can continue to do the work that we're called to do sustainably, so that we could keep doing it. So emotional healing, I love this old bag. We have these bags that we carry around. They're full of our memories, of our emotions, of the things that we have experienced that we can't quite make sense of yet, that still throw us off, that still hurt when we call them up. And what happens is when you're a child, you have a very limited view of the world around you and your place in it. Really is very isolated to me. Even at some stages, those around me still feel like me. There's no separation between a child and their parents at some stages. There's just not the differentiation. The brain hasn't developed in that way yet. And so those that are central in your life, maybe your parents or your grandparents or your caregivers, you take on the beliefs that you get from them, the way that they operate in the world, the things that are right and wrong and good and bad, and how we deal with ourselves and how we deal with others. And we're just a sponge for that information at those young ages. And that really forms our operating system. Just like a computer has an operating system. It has a way of processing information and filtering information and dealing with information. We have an operating system that we are always seeing the world through. We're always filtering the world through those beliefs and those rules that we learned as a kid. And what ends up happening is we create stories based on all that we've seen and all that we've experienced. And so that becomes the story of our life and of how the world works. And that's what we operate from. So when we're children, that operating system is really designed to keep us safe. So we may learn it's not okay to speak up. I get hurt if I speak up. Okay, I'm not speaking up. That's a rule that keeps us safe from being hurt. And as a child, when so much of our world is in the hands of someone else, those are actually very helpful, and those rules really have value. They have a place. As we grow into adults, oftentimes we carry those beliefs with us if we haven't looked at them, and we're still operating from this place of being a child. But we're not a child anymore. We have autonomy. We are in control of ourselves, and we have this outdated operating system. And so we may not even agree with those beliefs, but they're so unconscious. They're so woven into the fabric of who we are. And literally in our mind, they are in a very deep place. So it's not always obvious. It's not always easy to access those or to recognize or to become aware of them. So now, as complex, capable adults, we're walking around acting out of this old operating system. And often it doesn't get us where we want to be. This shows up in our interpreting when I bring myself. There are two or more other humans here who have their own stories, their own beliefs, their own rules about the way the world works, based on their experiences and based on their what they learned when they were children. And we all come together and we kind of make this new mishmash of stories, of baggage. We put our bags together and we mix them up. So because each of these people's, all of who they are is coming through us, we are filtering. As an interpreter, I am filtering based on the ways that I believe the world works. And what happens when we're not aware of our beliefs and of our operating system is we can't do anything to mitigate that, because we don't even see it. We don't even know that filter is there. But as we become more and more aware of our beliefs, of this operating system that we have in place, the rules, the way we see the world, as we become more and more aware of this through self-reflection, we're able to then go, oh, that's my story about the world. That's maybe not even how these people grew up. They may not even have that experience. That may be totally outside of what they go through, or what they know, or even what is true for them, for other people. And we can start to tweak those things. Okay, so just a moment. If we're not aware of the way that our operating system is affecting the interpreting situation, we can go in and interpret, and all of our old stuff can get stirred up. So like we just, you maybe experienced in the visualization exercise, it might have brought up old memories of things that happened to you, and questions about why this and that, it shouldn't be that way. This old stuff that gets stirred up, this is really the root of burnout. This is the gooey, sticky stuff, the resinous, heavy, that lives inside of us, that just attracts other energies that feel the same way. It just kind of piles on, because now, in addition to my own, whatever it is that I was struggling with from my past, I've kind of added on this other layer of, well, I just witnessed that happening to someone. I just said those words to someone, and how could this come through me? It all kind of builds and multiplies. And what can happen is you may start to notice, these are some manifestations of this in our life, can be excessively checking our phone, being on social media more than we even want to, where it feels like, I don't want to be looking at this, but I can't stop myself. Food cravings, drinking to decrease our discomfort, all of these things and more, any kind of addictive behavior, any kind of behavior that feels, it's not out of joy can signal that there is more emotional healing to do. And the beauty in recognizing that is that once you begin to see those manifestations just as signs, as signs that point back to something tender that needs to be cared for, then you can start to feel grateful for those things. You can feel grateful for the compulsive phone checking, because once you become aware of it, you can go, oh, I'm on my phone again. What needs attention in here? It can become a sign. It can become a really beautiful, just like a turn signal way to go, oh, I need to turn this way. I need to turn inside and see what's going on in here. Okay, so thinking about this visualization that we just did, what beliefs of yours were operating behind your emotional response? So from these things that you shared and what you wrote down on your own papers, what kind of beliefs can you find behind those things? So some common beliefs that can come up for us while we're interpreting, and really just anywhere in life. This shouldn't be happening. That's a belief that I have. That I look at the situation, I say, this should not be happening to any human. Or maybe I can't handle this. I can't be here and interpret these racist comments. I can't handle it. Or it could be, it's not fair. It's just simply unfair and unjust. These are all beliefs, and they're not, we want to find them because this can help us to get to the bottom of these old emotional patterns and reactions. I'm going to leave that there. That's a deeper workshop that some of you have actually taken with me. But what beliefs do you find behind your reactions? You can type in the chat or unmute yourself. No one should suffer. Thank you, Summer. Yeah. That's a big one, especially in our work. It's so hard to see that. Shocked that a person could be unreasonable and disrespectful when you give them no reason. Yeah. These are great beliefs, because as you start to list these out, you can then work with them. Like I said, that's another workshop, but this is the first step in that, is becoming aware of them. Just realizing, oh man, I'm, even as we're interpreting, going, oh, I'm having a really hard time with this because I don't think anyone should suffer like this, or I don't think anyone should be this unreasonable or this disrespectful. And just to notice that, to be aware of that going on internally, that is the first and largest step in having our raincoat on, and being able to protect ourselves from this stuff, with the goal that then we can be there as clear a conduit as we can, as giving as equal of access as we can, because that's what our job is. That's what our role is in that situation. What happens as we become more aware of these patterns and these beliefs is that we get to know our operating system. We get to know our emotions. We're tuning into our emotions and our needs and our patterns and our habits. That's the first step in developing emotional maturity and in becoming less emotionally reactive, more in charge of what's happening internally for us. When we're less reactive, then we have space and we have the cognitive ability to choose our responses instead of just relying on reaction, on those defaults. So that's the goal here. So if we think of arteries as conduits, which they are conduits for our blood, obviously. I love this visual for what's happening internally for us as conduits. So the picture on the left, the healthy artery, it has clear, smooth walls of the artery, right? And it allows that stuff just to pass through. There's all kinds of things in the blood. There's, maybe plaque, there may be different things that your body is processing, and they're flowing through easily. But what can end up happening as we have, and probably most often we start in the middle because we have this buildup already. We have these beliefs that we may not have looked into from our childhood. And so most of us start with partially blocked arteries. And the goal is then, if we can process and sift through and learn from and have compassion for all that junk that's stagnant, as we start to peel away those layers, then we get this nice smooth surface that can allow things to pass through. If we're starting out with that partially blocked artery and we're not aware and we're just adding to the pain and the assumptions and all of this, then that buildup is continuing to build up. Okay, so we can go either way, and our goal here in this learning to create our raincoat is to get a nice smooth surface so we can just be there and be clear and be open and not have this stuff take us down. Deciding to consciously do this work, to put commitment and time and energy into reducing some of this baggage, into compassion for ourselves as we move through this, that is really the first step to minimizing the damage right now. And you can do that right now. You can do that in every moment. And even when you slip and fall and you forget, the second that you remember, the second that you come back to yourself and you come back to reflection and compassion, you're perfect. That's right where you just meet it every time you notice that you're there. So I want to look at, when we're talking about what do my arteries look at, the next piece that I want to do is, let me see if it's on the slides. Okay. The next piece that I want to look at is the quiz that some of you may have already taken, but it's fun to look at it again, and your answers may be different than before. So I have this quiz online, but I'm going to read it to you, and if you can just have your pen and paper and write down your answer, just the letter of your answer is fine. So this is the burnout proof quiz. So number 1, when was the last time you were sick? A, within the last month, or B, more than a month ago. So you can just write down 1 and then A or B, whichever is the answer for you. Within the last month or more than a month ago. Number 2, when asked where or what you'd like to eat, you A, say, oh, anything, what would you like? Or B, list a few options that sound great to you. Number 3, how many hours of sleep did you average per night in the last month? We have A, B, and C. A is 0 to 6 hours a night on average in the last month. B is 7 to 9, and C is more than 10. Number 4, did you use the words, I'm fine today when you didn't actually mean it? A is yes, B is no. Number 5, when someone offers to help, you A, quickly say, no, really, I'm fine. B, reluctantly accept help and then feel guilty for it. Or C, warmly accept and feel grateful for the offer. Number 6. Today's been a short day, so maybe we'll say yesterday. Did you feel joy yesterday? Did you feel joy? A is nope. B is yes, I sure did. And C is what's joy? Seven, when someone gives you a compliment, we got 4 choices here. A, smile genuinely, receive the message in your heart and say thank you. B, laugh and wave it off, downplaying your awesomeness. C, sidestep the compliment completely and give them one right back. D, compliment? No one ever compliments me. And as you could tell, some of these are kind of silly, but you get the gist of them. You can just pick based on the gist. Number 8, when it's time to wake in the morning, you A, are on your 3rd snooze cycle, buried under the covers. B, wake with or without your alarm, feeling well rested. C, feel exhausted but drag yourself out of bed anyway. Number 9, when someone asks you to do them a favor, you A, feel a clear yes or no, and then answer accordingly. B, accept, say you'll do the thing they want you to do, and then feel resentful or complain about the obligation. C, say yes, and then cancel later. D, usually say no. Let me know if you want me to repeat any of these too. And then number 10, your self-care, A, might benefit from some minor tweaks, but generally feels pretty good. B, what is self-care? C, is inconsistent at best. $11, do you know which food and drinks make your body feel best? A, yep, those are the ones I consume most of the time. B, nope, I've never paid attention. C, yes, I do, but I have a hard time honoring them. Oh, and there's a D to that one too. No, I've tried to figure it out, but I can't find any strong correlations. Number 12, do you have a consistent daily practice that fills your cup? A, yes, and I do it more often than not. B, nope. And the last one, number 13, when taking time for yourself, you A, soak it in and feel gratitude for it. Yeah, I will repeat that one. B, struggle with guilt. C, I don't remember the last time I took time for myself. Okay, so that was the last one. Let me know in the chat any that you want me to repeat. So I'm going to go back to number 7. When someone gives you a compliment, there's 4 options here. A, smile genuinely, receive the message in your heart and say thank you. B, laugh and wave it off, downplaying your awesomeness. C, sidestep the compliment and give them one right back. Or D, compliment? No one ever compliments me. Okay, that was 7. Number 1, when was the last time you were sick? A is within the last month. B is more than a month ago. And then 12 and 13. 12 is, do you have a consistent daily practice that fills your cup? Yes, and I do it more often than not. That's A. Or B, nope. 13 is, when taking time for yourself, you A, soak it in and feel gratitude for it. B, struggle with guilt. C, I don't remember the last time I took time for myself. Any others? So we'll go back and do the scoring on this. And I'm just going to tell you which ones to give yourself a point for. So, when was the last time you were sick? Oh, no, I can't remember how I did the scoring, but it's going to make sense anyway. When was the last time you were sick? So, if you answered B, give yourself a point. Number 2, when asked where or what you'd like to eat, B, give yourself a point. Number 3, B, give yourself a point. Number 4, B, give yourself a point. Number 5, C, give yourself a point. Number 6, B. Number 7, A. Number 8, B. You guys can probably guess on these. I'm sure you know which ones feel like the answer that you would prefer. Number 9, A. Number 10, A. Number 11, A. Number 12, A. And number 13, A. Okay. Type in the chat what your score was. Or if you have any that you missed that you'd like me to repeat, I'm still happy to do that. $12, yay, Maida. 5, Summer. I love the honesty. There is just no right and wrong here. It's all about becoming aware of what's going on for us. And it might even be validating. We're going to look at how you're feeling about it. So Elizabeth, 3. And then tell me how to say your name. Is it Tate? Yay. Okay, awesome. Yep, Tate got 2. Okay. Angie, 7. I think that's coming up, huh, Angie? Awesome. Okay, so some questions to ponder about this. We got our self-reflection here. Yeah, a little better than last time. Good. So good. Just moving in the right direction. So you can write down for yourself and then also share in the chat what surprised you about any part of this, or what didn't surprise you. You might go, oh yeah, that's pretty consistent with how I'm feeling. It's not a surprise that I got a 2 because I feel it. Or you may be surprised about certain aspects of this, or certain answers. Maybe there was an answer that you thought, oh, that didn't seem like the clear, positive answer to me. And then how do you feel about your results? What does this information tell you, or what do you want to do with it? Myla says, doing much better with self-care, forcing myself to slow down at night to get more refreshing sleep, but need better ways to deal with frustration and stress during the day. Awesome, Myla. That's so huge. The sleep aspect is, I'd say it's right up there at the very top. I like to compare it to toddlers and how we all know that if a toddler misses their nap, if a toddler didn't sleep enough, they're not going to be able to do much of anything and be be kind or be patient or, really be able to do anything. We're the same. We are toddlers. And if we don't get the sleep that we need, we just really cannot expect much more of ourselves than that. Summer says, I started working on my compassion fatigue about a year ago, and I can see a lot of improvement. I would have had a much worse score back then. Awesome. Great. I love hearing about how this work really does make a difference, because sometimes when we're in that space, especially with compassion fatigue, it's hard to see a way out. It's hard to believe that anything's going to make a difference. And so getting to hear stories of people who have been working on this stuff and are seeing a difference really is helpful for everybody. So thank you. Anybody else want to share? Did this feel validating to anyone? Was there anyone that felt like, oh yeah, it makes sense that I'm having a hard time because my number's really low? Angie says, I'm getting better, but still say I'm fine. But then I'll say, well, not really. I love that. That is so perfect, Angie. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm not saying that I'm fine is a right or a wrong answer. And the noticing is the piece that's so important to us and so validating to us and our experience. So when you're able to notice what's actually the truth for you, and then to start to bring more of that truth. And that doesn't mean that we have to just dump everything that's happening for us, on the person that's asking, how are you doing? You may choose not to. And the following up with saying, oh, well, really like thinking into that, that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. And it's a great tool to use, because we don't have to get it right on the first try. We don't have to say it perfectly the first time it comes out of our mouth, or, oh, well, now we've messed it up. No, we always get another chance. I love that. And Angie says, not learned yet to accept others' compliments with grace and accept them with love, but I'm very aware of it. And once in a while, accept compliments. Oh yeah, I can say thank you. Yeah, awesome. Just that awareness is huge. And then the ability to be compassionate and not beat ourselves up over knowing that that's a place where we are developing, knowing where we're working in our life, and having that not be bad, not be wrong, or not mean that we have messed up or that we're not doing something right. Yeah, I love it. So good. All right, so that's our arteries. So creating this raincoat. The 3 pieces of this, and as you can see, we've been working on these already, but we're going to just dive into each of them separately now. The first piece is lovingly peeling back the layers of buildup, like we talked about in our arteries. We're lovingly wiping those away with our self-awareness and our self-reflection. So that's exactly the things that you guys are putting in the comments. Like, Angie, that's just what you said. So it's not about getting it perfect. It's about awareness and then compassion, making sure that we're not then attacking ourselves for it or making ourselves wrong. But then we lay down that smooth protective coating of self-compassion that really allows a lot of this stuff to run off. And then the maintenance is really where the mindfulness comes in. This is a daily maintenance of keeping this stuff clear and staying tuned in to what's happening inside. So mindfulness really does incorporate both well, all three: self-awareness, self-reflection, and self-compassion. But it's just a practice that allows us to do those things. I want to be clear that these three parts don't always happen in sequential order. It's not like you're going, okay, I did my self-reflection. Now I've got to do my self-compassion. Now I'm going to do my mindfulness. Like it's a never-ending conglomeration of all of these things. They're just three pieces that are really helpful. It's like, oh gosh, I love a couple of metaphors that come to mind. One is that it's kind of like building a house. So you have the foundation, you have the walls, you put in the electricity. Like it's all pieces that come together to create this structure that's going to house and protect you and keep you warm, right? And so they each have a little bit of a different function, but they're all pieces of kind of the larger whole. So we'll start with self-reflection and awareness. And I just love that picture. There was something that was amusing to me about that being gosh, what is that? A gorilla? And just the look of awareness on their face. Got another comment here. I know what I need, honestly, to eat and drink, but I'm not there at the moment, and I'm sabotaging myself on feeling better with not eating right food and drink, not always respecting and valuing my health. Yes, 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 yes. The awareness, again, just the awareness of saying, like, these are choices that I'm making right now, and I'm going to be tender and compassionate with myself. I'm going to recognize, I'm going to look at what emotions are going on behind this, because to be honest, it's not, I mean, food and drink really can affect how we're feeling and everything about our health. And really the juicy stuff here is the emotions that are behind it and what we can learn about what we're going through. So, gosh, I really want to get to this friend part, and I'm just going to say it right now. I really love using the tool or the way to visualize this as if we are our own friend. And we're going to get into this more too. But so just like, Angie, if your friend came to you and said, gosh, I'm not eating the things that I know feel good to my body. I'm having a hard time keeping up on those habits or making those choices that I know help me to feel good. And I'm feeling like I'm sabotaging myself, feeling like I'm not always respecting and valuing my health. What would you want them to say to you? And if we can, you don't have to answer this right now, and we're going to get into it more later, but if we can meet ourselves as we would a friend, my 10-year-old, I have 4 kids, and my 10-year-old right now is really struggling with being down on himself if he makes a mistake, if he doesn't win at a game, if he, if he messes something up, he really gets down on himself, and he'll say, I hate my life, I hate myself. And so we've been talking a lot about, and I said to him, Kieran, who's your best friend right now? Like, just imagine somebody that you really care about. And he said, Oliver. So, well, if Oliver were to, lose at this game that you were playing with him, would you say to him, Oliver, I hate you. You're awful. You're so bad at this. You shouldn't even be alive. Would you say those things to him, or how would that feel? No, I would never say those. He's like, no, I wouldn't say those things to my friend. I said, well, we have to be a friend to ourselves like that. We really want to start to think about being a steward of this life that we get to have. And as a steward, we get to show up every day and bring that kind of compassion like we want to bring to our friends. Angie says, you nailed it again, Brie. My emotional eating from my childhood equals stress response. Thanks for that. Be a friend to myself equals baby steps. Yes. We just want to be so tender. So tender. Okay. Awesome. Really good stuff. And I trust, and I know from doing these workshops, is that this stuff is helpful for everyone. As you share what's coming up for you, it can resonate with other people. So even if not everyone struggles with their food choices, you can find a place in your life that this relates to, and it's beneficial to everyone. So thank you all for sharing. Okay, so self-reflection and awareness. So like we talked about a little bit already, this self-awareness is really becoming aware of our operating system, becoming aware of the way we see the world, the way we see ourselves, the stories we tell, the ways that we beat ourselves up, the ways that we judge others. Everything in the world around us that we see is really just a reflection of how we see ourselves. So if we find ourselves being judgmental towards others, really, critical, or requiring a lot of people, really wanting them to meet our expectations, we can then know that we are doing those same things to ourselves, that we are being just as hard on ourselves, and vice versa. So it just allows us, it's like a mirror. And as we start to find these beliefs, it's sort of like can be like finding an error in our code, like sifting through all of these filters and finding this, like, oh, I don't actually believe that. I don't actually believe that I'm not worthy of love. I don't actually believe that I'm in danger, in real, life or death danger right now. No, it feels like life or death danger. It feels like I'm not worthy of this compliment that I've been given. It feels like that because I'm running this code that computes out to tell me you're not worthy of this, or you're not safe in this situation. But when I actually stop to look, I go, oh, maybe there's an error in that code. Maybe that's not code that I want to keep. And then we have ways to help to release some of these errors in our code. And it starts with really holding ourselves tenderly, but first becoming aware of what's going on in there. I'm going to make sure I'm right where I want to be. The fun part about this process is, and it really can, you guys, it really can be fun. So I want you to, even if that doesn't resonate with you right now and you go, how could this ever be fun? This is like the most painful, yucky stuff that we're going to dredge up. It can be fun because as we see, that stuff is operating in there all the time, regardless. As we bring it to the light and we're able to look at it, we can go, and it's just like decluttering our environments. We can go, do I want to keep this? Does this bring me joy? Or do I want to release it and let it go and send it on its way and say, thank you for what you've done for me, and you no longer serve me. So I'm gonna move on. So as we're in this process, the first piece of this, the self-reflection, the self-awareness, the building blocks of that are feelings and needs. And I'm gonna, oh, Angie, I'm so glad you were able to be here with us for a little bit. She has to sign off for now, but maybe be able to rejoin later. She has to get back to work. Oh, so glad you were here. Okay. So feelings and needs. These are the building blocks of self-awareness, self-reflection, and then soon to come, self-compassion. So feelings. I think we all are fairly familiar with what feelings are, what emotions are, and for the purposes of this work, they're the same. Feelings and emotions are the same thing in what I'm talking about. Oh, cool. Okay, so some words that describe feelings: sad, mad, glad. Those are kind of the trio. Scared, anxious, fragile, annoyed, surprised, ashamed, hurt, overwhelmed, envious. As interpreters, we have great vocabulary for all of these words. And sometimes as we go to apply them to ourselves and go, what am I feeling right now? Like really getting nuanced and specific about what's happening in here. Sometimes that can be harder than, as we're interpreting, we can pull up those words all day, but then relating them to what's happening inside can be a little more challenging sometimes. So creating a practice around noticing the awareness of noticing what's going on inside. So, I'm triggered. I'm in this interpreting situation and I'm feeling really hijacked. Like, my brain is frozen, my shoulders tense, whatever it is that triggers you, clues you in to know something's going on in here. Then we can go one step further and say, okay, what am I feeling? And you may be able to do this while you're in the interpreting situation, just to go, oh gosh, this has me really mad right now. Okay, I'm here with myself. I know I'm mad. I know this is hard. I still care about equal access, so I'm doing it. But afterward is, right afterward is a really great time to open up your journal and go, oh, I'm so pissed. That was so hard for me to be a part of. And I want to say, as interpreters, there are not many spaces for us yet where we can process our work on this kind of level. And so I love to teach tools, one, that we can do on our own, because we don't always have time to sit down and debrief, or we may not have a space or people to do that with. So I like to teach tools that you can do on your own, that really empower you to be able to work through this stuff. But also, doing this work on our own then can help us to get better about processing our work with other people in a way that is still confidential, that still maintains the respect and confidentiality of the people that were involved. Because when you boil it down, what really affects what I'm left with is what affects me. It's not necessarily about who said what to whom or any of their specifics. It's about, gosh, this reminds me of being stuck in my marriage, or this reminds me of when I was a kid and I saw my parents going through this. It all comes back to something about us, and that is ours. That is ours. That is not confidential. It's as confidential as you want it to be, but you get to talk about that. So as you're journaling and saying, oh my gosh, I feel so mad about this. This reminds me of when this happened. So you might start to use it in that way. It can be great to carry around a feelings list, so that in that moment when you're triggered and you've got all this stuff going on inside, you can look at a list and go, what am I feeling? How can I even name this? And you can pluck a name, a word, an emotion word off the list to be able to use. So those are some feeling words. Needs can sometimes be a little trickier to identify. I just want to talk a little bit about what they are. So some of you have taken this workshop with me already. This is in my Compassionate Communication for Interpreters workshop. And it's such a foundational part of any of this work. So that's why I'm including it here too. So needs are universal. Needs, all humans have the same needs. And you could think of Maslow's hierarchy. We all have these basic needs of food, water, shelter, touch. And then it can go in this hierarchy of, once those needs are met, we have other needs that need to be met. Not everyone's needs are up at the same time. So because of my operating system, because of the way I look at the world and I think about myself in the world, I might have a really strong need for connection. I might want to know that my friends are always there, that they will always be there for me. I might really depend on having that need met often and in a certain way to show me that I have connection. connection is a need. It's a need for everyone. No human can thrive without having some form of connection. It could be internal connection. It could be connection to a higher power. It could be connection to other humans. It doesn't have to look a certain way. But at the root, we all have to get these needs met. And some of them that I've written here, and this is just a very abbreviated list, needs for affection, needs for communication, needs for respect, touch, inspiration, creativity, cooperation, love, food and water, joy, freedom, competence. You can think of almost anything. This list is very long of human needs. But the important thing to know is different ones are up for different people and different, and we need different amounts of them at different times. So any comments or questions on the feelings and needs? Does that make sense? What have you experienced in naming these things? Does anybody have experience with naming feelings and needs? It's okay if not. Okay. We're going to do an exercise here, and so you will get some experience with it. So this is great for self-reflection, and also it gets into compassion. This is something that you can do at any time. This is a great tool to have in your toolbox. I want you to take out a piece of paper and write 2 of these kind of T's, just like that. And I'm going to read the comment here from Maitha. Lately, I've struggled with identifying needs and emotions. If I allow it, my emotions cloud what my needs truly are. Yeah, sometimes our emotions feel so big and take up so much space in us that it's hard to get at what is the need behind that. And so I just want to applaud that you are aware of looking for needs and emotions, and that sometimes they are harder to identify and harder to find. But the practice of just looking, of just trying to be open to them is huge. You know, again, if you picture yourself sitting with a friend, just the fact that you're there, just the fact that you're listening and you're open, and you may not know what to say, and you may not know exactly how to help them through this, just being there. So being there with yourself and saying, I don't know how to identify this yet. I don't have words for it yet. And I'm here and I care and I want to know, I want to understand more. That's what matters. Thank you. Okay, so does everybody have your 2 T's? We're going to just focus on 1 T first. So pick one of your T's, and we're going to make a list with 2 columns is what this is. So on the left column, you can write feelings, and on the right side of that T, on the right columns, write needs. So I want you to think about a situation with you and another person. So this isn't necessarily an interpreting situation. This is just a situation where you felt upset, frustrated, hurt, mad, annoyed, something like that. I want you to really call that situation to mind, see yourself back in that situation, hear or see what that person said to you or what you said to them, and kind of stir up some of those feelings again. So we want to use them, we want to learn from them. Feel the feelings in your body again of being in that situation, and remember the thoughts that were running through your mind. Now, I want you to, on your columns here on the left side, feelings, write down all the feelings that you can identify that you were feeling in that moment. So it may have been, I felt really mad. Oh, I was frustrated. I was resentful. I felt sad. Maybe even you might get to different layers of emotions, but see if you can get all the emotions, capture all of your emotions in that situation, and then try to identify what the needs were that were up. Gosh, I was really needing connection in that moment. I didn't feel like I was getting it. I really needed communication. I really needed love. Write down as many needs in that moment as you can. And as you're doing that, I'm going to run to the bathroom real quick and I'll be right back. Okay. And if you have any questions or any issues, write them in the chat. And I left my water out there, so I'm going to go out again in a second. The second piece of this, once you have felt in to what your feelings and what your needs were, and you feel like you have a good, complete list there, because this is the piece that is self-compassion. This is the listening as a friend would listen. You identifying and really tuning in and going, what's happening in there? How did you feel? What were you needing? Just like you would with a child. Oh, wow. I wonder, did that hurt? Oh, it seems like you're feeling really mad. Is that how you're feeling? That kind of checking in, that is compassion. So that's how we can give ourselves compassion. So as you have your whole list there, I want you to switch gears just a little bit as you go to the second T. And you're going to do feelings and needs again on this T. But this time I want you to think about the other person's perspective, what they were experiencing in this situation. What do you think they were feeling? What emotions do you think they were feeling? Maybe they were feeling frustrated. Maybe they were feeling confused, misunderstood. They were feeling hurt. They're feeling angry. So go through this same process, but just try to imagine, and we don't know for sure, but just the act of trying to put ourselves in someone else's shoes can be really helpful. So fill out your lists for what the other person may have been feeling, what they may have been needing. Maybe they were needing some alone time. Maybe they were needing autonomy. Maybe they were needing connection. Just take some guesses. And type any questions that you have in the chat box. I'm going to run and get my water real quick. Okay. Does everybody feel like they have a complete list? You wrote down everything you could think of. If you need another minute. You might still be writing, which is just fine. Why don't you tell me in the chat box when you feel complete with your lists? Excellent. Okay. Seems like we're all ready. Elizabeth and Tate, you guys ready too? I can see you right now. Okay, yeah. Okay. So I want to hear about what this was like for you. What did you notice from writing these lists? Maybe you noticed something about giving yourself that own space and that compassion. It may have felt good. Sometimes people notice similarities between the two charts, between their feelings and needs and the other person's feelings and needs. Do you notice anything like that? And then also, how do you feel about the situation now that you were envisioning? Did anything change for you? Do you feel, do you have different emotions about it? Did you have any realizations about it? Go ahead and write your answers for yourself and then share what you want to in the chat. Okay, Maida says, I have more peace about my needs and making decisions about my life without others' approval or support It was painful, but I'm learning from it to grow stronger. Looking to others for approval is such a universal one. Yeah. Once we can recognize, sometimes naming our needs and recognizing them helps us to own them, just like you're saying, Martha, helps us to go, oh, this is valid, and I can find a way to get this need met. And I don't have to look to any one specific person to do that. It's really freeing. Elizabeth says they were both similar. So not only was I frustrated, but the other person was too. Makes me feel a little better, but still not completely. Yeah. Yeah, so this doesn't necessarily solve anything, just like you're pointing to. That's really true. And sometimes it can help us to go, oh gosh, they were feeling, as bad as I was feeling, they were feeling a really similar thing. That's a lot of times that's interesting, and it may bring up more questions. And I think, is this Tate now says, my lists were different. My friend did not have any negative feelings in the situation and did not even realize I was irritated in the situation. Yeah, so then you might recognize, gosh, they were having a whole different experience. They had a whole different reality about what was going on than you did. So just good information here, right? This is the awareness and the reflection piece where it allows us, once we have this new information and maybe a little more realistic information, then sometimes in a situation like Tate, I'm just gonna kind of make up from what you have said. If you were feeling really irritated and your friend was not even knowing that there was irritation happening, it's like, because you're in such different realities, it's hard to, you may have felt like, well, my friend doesn't even care because I'm so upset and they're not even responding to my emotions. But as we get kind of below those assumptions and we start to see the reality of the situation, we can deal with it, actually deal with what's going on. Summer, yes, I'm so glad you said that. Naming my needs made me feel needy. Yes, 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 yes. When I first learned about this, and this comes from nonviolent communication, actually, this naming of feelings and needs. And when I first learned about it, it was so freaking hard for me to even accept that I had needs. Like, I don't want to need anything. I don't need anything from anyone. I can do it all myself. And and to really, I had to hear it a lot before I finally accepted, like, oh, it's normal to have needs. It's not only normal to have needs, you can't be a human without having needs. And as we try to push these things down and go, oh, I don't need that, I don't want to be needy, we're actually creating this vacuum inside that's like, because these needs are valid. We just have to find a way to meet them that feels good to all involved. Yeah, so that's such a perfect response. Thank you. I love the honesty. I just appreciate it so much. Good. Yeah. So self-reflection. I have a couple of resources for you. If self-reflection work is where you feel like you want to dive in some more, I would add to this list. And I just thought of nonviolent communication, adding that. So you can find lots of information about NVC, nonviolent communication, on the internet. The work of Byron Katie is a great one. Inner bonding. Working with a coach often is a very self-reflective practice. You can do any of this in journaling work or in affirmations that you create. Those are just some ideas how you can go further with this if that's what you want to do. Self-compassion. So the second piece of this raincoat, and this is what helps to make us real slick, which is really just being so cared for that we're okay. So self-compassion is the balm that helps you heal these old wounds and stop creating new ones. It's treating yourself like you would treat someone that you care about. Being thoughtful in your words and actions, caring for your own needs, giving lots of grace when you've made a mistake. Mistakes are necessary for learning and growth, and we can begin to see them as the precious gifts that they are. They help us to learn, and they help us to grow, and they help us to clarify what we want and what we don't want. They're good information. So here comes the friend in need part. I think this colors all of what we're talking about today. So I just love this visual. So I want you to, this is kind of another visualization. So if you want to close your eyes, you can, or just kind of soften your gaze, but picture a friend or a loved one that you care for deeply. Somebody that you truly see, that you know they're a good person at their core. You've built trust with them. You have a connection that feels good. Imagine that this friend calls you up and they're crying. They lost their temper and they yelled at their child and they're feeling horrible about it. How do you feel inside as you hear your friend recounting their guilt and their sadness over what happened? How do you feel toward them, and what do you say? If you just take a moment to jot some notes, what are your emotions when you hear your friends in such a state that they just feel really bad about what they've done? How do you feel? And what do you say to them? What are some words that you might say to them? Go ahead and write those things down. And if you'll share in the chat with us, or if you're ready to talk to, just unmute yourself. How do you feel when your friend shares something like this with you? And what do you say to them? What would you say if I called you and I said, I just lost my temper with my kid and I feel so bad? Maitha says, I'm compassionate and gentle, saying something like, oh, I understand where you're coming from. We all feel like that, but don't be so hard on yourself. Yeah. We can feel that place of oneness with them, of knowing that that's just such a human reaction. That's something that all people experience at some point. Yeah, I love it. What else? Did anybody say, oh my gosh, you're a horrible mom. I can't even believe you lost your temper with your child? Anybody say that? No. Okay. Yeah, we often don't have that response to our friends. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we feel like, oh, that maybe that wasn't appropriate. But we have this level of care and of love that we'll usually handle it in a way that's kind, even if we have concerns. Elizabeth says, remind yourself who you are. You're a mom. It's okay to feel that. It's normal. Yes, I love it. Yeah, so much compassion, so much understanding just for this human experience. Okay. Hopefully you're getting my point. I want you to, once again, go inside. Maybe close your eyes. I want you to call to mind a recent time when you made a mistake, when you felt like you failed at something, felt like you handled something really poorly, You made a choice that you might now regret. I want you to feel all the feelings associated with that and write them down and share them in the chat. What are you feeling? I want you to remember the things that you said to yourself in your head. What did you tell yourself? Oh, I'm a bad person. I'm horrible. I'm such a failure. I mess up my life. I'm a mess. Go ahead and take a moment to write those things down. Get them out. Get them out on paper where we can bring them to the light. Yeah, how could I be so stupid? Tate says defeated, felt defeated. Maida says, I've got to get myself together. I'm going crazy and taking others with me. Yeah, we make these large statements. We make these really grandiose statements about ourselves. Stupid. It's like everything about our intellect is wrapped up into this one moment. Or going crazy. You know, I've just like have no mental sanity anymore because I made this one decision that I might make differently if I had it to choose again. Yes, these are such normal things to say. We all experience this. And I want to ask you now, would you say these things to your friend? They called you and said, oh, I made this mistake. And you say, oh, how could you be so stupid? You say, oh yeah, you really messed up. You've got to get yourself together. You're going crazy and you're taking others with you. We don't often talk to our friends this way. There's maybe certain situations where we have a little bit of tough love. Yes. And often when someone is really hurting and really in pain, we call up that compassion, and we know that they are not the sum of this one mistake. They're much more than that. So as we can begin to practice seeing ourselves as that friend, treating ourselves, even when it's hard, even when it's like, you know, we have to claw our way towards kindness for ourselves, just the act of leaning in that direction, of shifting our attention in that direction, like looking for what would be the response that I would give to a friend. Like even opening to that can be really, really helpful. So I want you to walk away with this. We just talked. Oh, we didn't talk about that. Just joking. In just a moment, we kind of went into this, but the self-reflection piece of this first. So what did you notice between these two? How you responded to your friend and how you responded to yourself similar or different? And we saw that here because you shared with us. We respond to our friends differently than we respond to ourselves sometimes. But I do want you to ask yourself, and I want you to answer in the chat, which response, in both situations, somebody had made a mistake, something that they wished that they hadn't done. Your response in both situations, I want you to think about which response felt better inside you, which response felt more kind, which response felt more peaceful, just bringing you peace inside as you're there, either with yourself making a mistake or with someone else making a mistake. Which response felt better? It's kind of a silly question because I think we all read these responses and I think we all know which ones feel better, but just by you right now tuning into, that's the better feeling response. That's the response that feels more kind, more loving, more peaceful inside myself. I want each of you to just really seal that in right now. Yeah. So Tate says, yeah, the response to my friend felt better. Maida says, definitely the more compassionate response to the friend. Yeah. So we just want to try to embody some of that for ourselves. And that's here. The one person guaranteed to spend the rest of your life with you is you. No one else. And there are so many ways that we attach ourselves to other people in this life, and it's beautiful and it's good, and we need those connections, and we need to be giving and receiving love. Those are basic human needs. And so it can be really helpful to bring it down to this one truth, that I am the only one guaranteed to walk this life with me. The only one. And so I want to foster a relationship with myself that makes this life enjoyable and makes me better able to then serve other people. Because for me, that's what this is about. It's about, what is my purpose here? What am I here to do? Why am I here to, what am I here to do? And the clearer I can be, the kinder I can be to myself, the better decisions I end up making, right? When we talked about how does the fears or the emotional response as we're interpreting, how does that affect our interpreting process? We freeze, we tense up, we do not do our best work. We cannot be an effective communication facilitator as we're there in our own stuff, stuck in all this stuff that comes up. So as we practice in every part of our life, we're practicing and training ourselves to reflect, to become aware of how we're feeling, to then be compassionate toward ourselves as we're discovering these things that maybe we want to make some changes, and we're working toward changes, and we're having compassion along the way. Because in the end, what we know is the one person guaranteed to spend the rest of your life with you is you. Yeah. As we begin to really take this in and really start taking responsibility for ourselves, taking care of ourselves, recognizing that our needs are valid and that I am the only one responsible for making sure that these needs get met. Once we start doing that, this is the foundation of healthy boundaries. So then it's so much easier to see, oh, that's their job. That's their responsibility. I don't have to go and take that on. I don't have to look to them for approval. I don't have to wonder, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Are they going to criticize me? No, I can feel secure in knowing this is my area to deal with, to take responsibility for, to work with, to love. This is my responsibility. And that over there is yours. And we can see the difference between, and we can see the boundary, and we can know better when to say yes or no. In our interpreting, self-compassion becomes really important. And even though it's not something that we've probably talked about in relation to interpreting before, but I just want to drive this home, that as we're in these situations and we have gotten caught up in our emotional response, and we're being hard on ourselves, and we're feeling maybe critical of the job that we're doing then, because we've had this amygdala hijack, like, we are overtaken by emotions and we're not doing our best job interpreting. And then we feel maybe like we've failed in that situation as an interpreter. We walk out of there feeling not confident. We walk out of there feeling like, gosh, I just did a lousy job. I shouldn't even be an interpreter. We can have this cascade of this. Really what we're doing is adding more and more layers onto our arteries till we have this super tiny pathway left open to us. But so this stuff affects our interpreting directly, because as we can make the choice in that moment to go, okay, I'm not going to pile crap on top of crap. I'm not going to beat myself up right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my reflection, my awareness. How am I feeling? What was I needing? What was I wishing would happen? You know, all of these questions that we've gone through, you can use these after an interpreting situation. And then to go after, you know, after we've had the compassion, after we know what was happening inside, what might I do to help myself next time? So we're setting ourselves up. I love thinking about giving a gift to my future self, because in every moment, it's like we are new. In every moment, we are a new person. And what I do right now can set Bree up tomorrow for a good day, right? So what can I do in this moment that I realize I regret, you know, I regret these things. I wish that I made a different decision. Okay, this is what I want to remember for next time. And maybe you just walk away with one thing that you want to remember for next time as a way to work more toward this, what you want to be, how you want to be. And you've given yourself the compassion, and you know that you're human and that it's okay. And there's room for growth and room for improvement in the future. Tell me about your experience of self-compassion and how this shows up in your life. Do you feel like you have a handle on compassion for yourself, or are there moments where you leave situations and you feel like you're berating yourself? Another question is, and I'm not sure if you're typing or not, but where could you imagine using this or needing this in your life? Where can you identify, as you think about, you know, a normal day, where could you identify a need for more self-compassion? Maybe it's as you fall asleep at night. Some people, that's the first time that they really quiet themselves. And so it's the time that our brains kind of come to life and let us know all the things that we did wrong in the day, or all the things that we should be worried about for tomorrow. It's like the first moment that we give any space for what's happening internally. And so that can cause sleep problems for us sometimes. Summer says it's a work in progress for sure. I'm very forgiving of others, but hard on myself. I'm learning to change the self-talk so I treat myself like I would others, letting them off the hook for their mistakes instead of berating them. Yes, yes. So beautiful. I love that. And I love how you said it's a work in progress, right? That's my belief, is that life is a work in progress. Like I never want to get this perfect. I never want to be done with this, because that will mean that I'm dead. I want to keep learning and growing. So we can be thankful for this work in progress. Maida says, I think I've been really hard on myself for many years because others were too. Now I'm relearning how to be more gentle with myself. I still struggle being assertive, questioning myself. That's really brilliant, Maida, that you are able to connect that to what you learned growing up. Those old beliefs have a direct entry right into the core of our operating system. And so, yeah, relearning how to be more gentle with myself. The next workshop that I'm going to do is going to be some specific practices to help us release some of that old stuff, some really powerful and simple practices that when we are aware of these things, and we're aware of our operating system, we can apply, there's lots of tools out there, but there's a few that I love to teach. We can apply those to help. We're cleaning out those arteries. We're getting rid of some of that old programming. So that'll be the next workshop. I would love to see you guys there. Awesome. Okay, so self-compassion. We've just got a few resources here of other self-compassion practices. If you feel like this is really the area where you want to dive in and do some more work, you can look up things like mirror work. And that's actually in your follow-up resources too. You'll see a link for mirror work. Any kind of work that deals with your inner guidance, with tapping into your intuition, starting to trust that guidance system that we all have, that we're born with. We have a guidance system within us that knows the next right thing for us, that knows how to navigate. And the more we can tune in to that, the more compassion we can find for ourselves. Affirmations can be great for self-compassion. I'm such a fan of sticky note affirmations. I have them all over the place. So, and if you're not familiar with affirmations, there's lots of information out there about them, but just real briefly, an affirmation is a statement of, once you're finding these errors in your code, as I have called them, these beliefs that may be in your operating system that you no longer believe, that no longer serve you, that you really want to plant a new belief, a new way of operating, you can create an affirmation that says, so for example, if a belief that you have had growing up is that what I have to say is unimportant, you might plant a new belief saying, my words have value, or what I think matters. And it's in present tense. So it's in positive present tense language. And it's stating a new, how I want to look at myself, how I want to believe about myself. And if you can put those in your car, on your bathroom mirror, next to your bed. And when you see them, you read them. And it's great if you can read them out loud and really feel them in your body. What I have to say matters. And just like we're soaking in a new belief, we're teaching ourselves a new belief. And what we know about belief is whatever we believe, we see evidence for in the world. So if I have a belief that what I think doesn't matter, I'm going to find evidence in every relationship in my life that what I have to say doesn't matter. And I'm going to believe that actually, whether it's true or not, whether that's actually what the other person is feeling or not, I'm going to project that always. So as we start to change some of these beliefs, we can have a very different experience of life and of relationships around us. Tate says, I have an affirmation app. It gives you a new affirmation every day. It's really nice. I would suggest it. Oh, Tate, I love that. Would you maybe type the name of the app here? I don't know if you can post a link to it, but I would love to have that. Or if you send me a link to it, I can include that in our resource list that you guys have access to. I love things like that. There's just, I think technology has brought a lot of really wonderful tools for us to use. We can harness them and use them for our good. Okay, you're going to send me a link. Awesome. I think it's just called Affirmation, but it's a blue icon. Okay, excellent. That's a great one. Thank you. A couple of other practices that can help with self-compassion, and we talked about the connection between self-compassion and boundaries, and how this is all kind of building this foundation that can spill into our time management. So working on time management, and not in terms of being more productive or more efficient necessarily, but more in terms of, are the things that I'm choosing to do with my time really aligned with my values, with my joy, with my desires? Is my calendar full of things that feel like obligations, that feel kind of like punishment, like torture? Like, you know, if I told my friend, like, you have to go to every PTA meeting or else you will be a bad mom, that's bullshit. Excuse my French. But those are the things that we say to ourselves, and we pack our calendars with things that feel like we have to do these things, we should do these things, it means we're a good person or a good citizen or a good whatever, we can start to get clear. And in that, we free up way more energy. We're just way more clear of a field once we've done that. And then learning to say no. No is a complete sentence. No, thank you. No, I don't want to. No, I don't prefer that. Very good practice to start getting comfortable saying yes when we mean yes and saying no when we mean no. It's a great way to honor compassion for ourselves. Okay. I'm going to look up, I have a visualization that I wanted to, and it's from this book, which you cannot see the front of because my sweet dog got a hold of it, but the whole book is intact. Let's see if I can remember the name of it. I'll post it too. It's called Self-Care for the Self-Aware. And it's some practices in here that for people like we're talking about, I think like most of us identify as being sensitive, being tuned in to other people's needs and emotions, and sometimes finding ourselves taking those on. This book is a great resource for doing exactly what we're talking about doing, becoming more clear, releasing a lot of that obligation, kind of becoming aware of those drains on our energy, and then being able to regulate ourselves and take care of ourselves in a really great way. Okay, so I just want to have this open. If anyone has essential oils, now is a great time for some melaleuca. So if you have, it's also called tea tree oil. If you have tea tree or melaleuca, put a little dab on the back of your neck. You can do it on your temples. Melaleuca, a lot of, it's kind of known and loved in the mainstream for skin. It's great for your scalp and your hair and blemishes or acne or healing any kind of wounds. Great for all of those things. But energetically, it is an oil that really helps us to clear emotions. It's just great for taking that energetic sludge and letting it go. So if you have this essential oil, it's a good one to carry in your bag. Before a job, you could just put a little dot. It doesn't have to be a ton. You don't have to be smelling like tea tree if you don't want to. I love it, but you could just put a little dab right at the base of your skull, maybe on your wrist points, and it helps to clear that energy. So it's a good one for that. Okay. We're going to go into mindfulness. And this is the last part. Oh, yay. And I'm going to look at your comments too. I see you've got. Maitha says, yes, lemongrass. Oh, perfect. Using lemongrass right now in my diffuser. Love it. Also made wonderful soaps with essential oils and natural ingredients to soothe aches and help relax me. They are so good for that. And I teach classes on that. I love essential oils. It's like one of my very top self-care and healthcare tools. And lemongrass is such a good one, Maitha. It's right up there with melaleuca in terms of clearing energy. And lemongrass specifically on the back of your neck really helps with those negative thoughts that you might have, especially, these critical thoughts that we have about ourselves. It can help to just cut those off, just let them go, that they just don't stick anymore as much. So lemongrass is a great one. Okay. Mindfulness. Look at that little monkey. I like to tell people my slides, some of them have some bullet points on them, but a lot of times they're just for energy, for the inner, setting the tone and the energy of what we're talking about. So we've got this cute little monkey hugging themselves. I want you to think of mindfulness really as showing up for yourself as you would for a friend. And mindfulness is the practice of doing that. So just like with a friend, it's one thing to say, I love you, I care about you, sending you good thoughts. It's another thing to call and say, I'm here. What can I do? Can I listen for 15 minutes? Can I come bring you dinner, as you're grieving? Actually showing up and being there for ourselves like we would for a friend. That's what a mindfulness practice can be. And that's what we get to do. I'm so excited that you all have opted in to spend 7 days doing this mindfulness practice, because it can be really life-changing. Whether you already have a practice that you're going to deepen, or you don't, and you're going to try it for the first time. I'm really excited. So if mindfulness is showing up for yourself as you would a friend, it's being present, witnessing, listening, showing compassion, having quality time with yourself. This is quality time with yourself. So often we go through our lives and we're running from one activity or one habit to another without ever stopping to check in. How am I feeling? What am I needing? Does this feel kind? What would feel kinder? Really being there, being a steward of this person that we are charged with in this life. Mindfulness can look a lot of different ways. So a lot of times it is talked about in connection with meditation. And the way that I like to teach and describe and actually do meditation is really anything that allows you to get still and quiet and better notice and check in with what's happening internally. So it can look so many different ways. It can be sitting. It can be sitting quietly with your legs crossed, and your fingers like this. It can be like that. You can om if you want to. You don't have to. That doesn't have to be a part of it. There are no requirements. It can look like walking through a field or a forest or down your city street. If you're walking with quiet, conscious intention about what's happening inside you, what's happening around you, how does that feel? Paying attention to the breath. A lot of times the breath is just a great focal point for any kind of mindfulness work, because it connects us to life, and it's such a steady rhythm that we can tune into. It's always there for us to tune into. So the breath is always a great thing to come back to. You can practice mindfulness in your eating. As you sit down with your plate or your bowl, and you are ready to eat, you just slow it down. You pay attention to your breath. You can smell your food. You can visually look at it, see like, it's beautiful. The different colors, the different textures, all the creatures that went into creating this and making sure that this is here for me on my plate right now. There can be gratitude in that. You might connect with a whole host of things. So this can show up in any aspect of your life. There was one time in my life where I was really working on, this is so silly, but this is just an example of like how it can be anywhere. I was working on my gum health. I had like these crazy receding gums because I'm like a very aggressive brusher. And I was always so worried about like cavities in my teeth that I just destroyed my gums by early in my 20s. And I did a lot of research on like what can be done to regrow and heal gum tissue, and something that I came across said like slow down. and be mindful of your brushing and send love to your teeth and your gums. And so I started this practice of like, as I was brushing my teeth, of just being really gentle and really thoughtful, like really just thinking about, instead of, usually when I brush my teeth, I'd just be like, what do I have to do next? You know, what was I just doing? All the things I have to think about? It was just like 2 minutes that I had to, that I had to wait before I could go do other things. But instead, just slowing that down and like being there with yourself and thinking about, wow, this is really cleaning my mouth. This is like caring for my teeth. It seems so silly, but you can find anything in your life to become a mindfulness practice. I talk about touchstones. Might be next, actually. Yeah, touchstones. So you might set a reminder on your phone. There's lots of apps. One that you'll see in the resource list is the Calm app, CALM. And I just love that app. I love their meditations. They have a wide variety of meditations. And they have a mindfulness reminder. If you set, you could set like this little alarm that'll just ding every so often. And as you hear that ding, you can come back, just bring it back to the breath. You'll notice that you're in thought, or you're hung up in emotion, or you're in the middle of something. And it just gives you one moment to just like come back and then move on with what you're doing. Your mindfulness touchstones might be when you wake up, hitting your alarm can signal like, okay, I'm going to tune into my body. How's my body feeling? When I'm eating, as I sit down with my food, we talked about that. When you're going to the bathroom is something that everybody does every day, hopefully, or else you should be really concerned. So that can be a touchstone. Anything that happens in your life can become a touchstone for mindfulness, for you to just tune in with what's happening inside. What is my experience right now? And can I just tune into the breath? This can be as you start to know what your tension responses are. So like for me, it's the shoulder and my eyebrow. Like I just tense this whole side of my body up. So as I notice like, oh, I'm tensing my eyebrow, that becomes a clue. It becomes a signal for me to go, okay, where can I tune in here? Like, what do you need? What do you need me to know right now? I'm here. I'm taking the time. Even if it's just a second, doesn't have to be that long, but just that act of tuning in. When you turn off your car, when you arrive somewhere, or as you put the key in the lock to go into your house, like these can be moments that trigger you to take a breath and get mindful. So decide for yourself what those might be. And we'll talk a little bit more about this practice that you're going to be doing and how to create that, how to structure it. Okay, I'm going to go into a visualization next. If anybody has any questions or any comments right now, feel free to type them into the chat. Got about a half an hour left, and it's always a tricky little balance of planning the right amount of information for the time, and I think we're going to be just about right. But definitely time for questions or comments or anything that's coming up for you. I'm just taking a scan through. Okay. So this tool and this meditation that I want to share with you is called the keyhole. And I'm not sure. Okay. Let's go back here. The keyhole. I love this. So the author of this book that I was telling you that my dog ate the cover of, his name is Dave Markowitz. And what he talks about, and I'll explain this before we do it, because I think it's helpful, is that so often as sensitive people, or people who are open and in tune with a lot of energy around us, we can, to protect ourselves from it, because it can be overwhelming, it can be painful, can be confusing. Sometimes we can start to build walls to try to protect ourselves, like stay out, keep that energy out. Sometimes we can isolate ourselves. We can withdraw out of fear of being too vulnerable to other people's emotions. This can affect us obviously in our interpreting work, like we've talked about. So, but the act of trying to push against, trying to resist that energy that's coming at us really can wear you out. That can be the cause of a lot of this stuff we have going on: chronic fatigue, the tension, the pain, the depression, the anxiety. All of it can be seen as really at its root having this pushing as its cause, this tension that we maintain all the time. That's exhausting. So what he proposes, and I think this is really revolutionary, is instead of working to keep that stuff out, instead of not wanting to feel the sting or the pain of, these really difficult things that we witness sometimes, instead of trying to keep it out, we let it move through us and we just let it go. We just let it whoosh through. And how he says to do this, and if you have any understanding of the chakras, it can be helpful, but it's not necessary for this. But I like to imagine that because, and this isn't a chakra class, but the chakras are these kind of centers of energy in our body that have been, traced and studied for thousands of years. And specifically, if we pay attention to our heart space, our heart chakra, and a lot of times, again, even if you're don't connect with the chakra system, you might feel tension in your chest. You might feel this feel like somebody punched you in your chest, feel a knot or a tightness or a pain in your chest as you're experiencing difficult things. And that can be this holding of no, don't get into my heart space. Don't impact that seat of my emotions. So what we want to do, if you can imagine like a pinwheel spinning in your chest here, that's this heart chakra, but it's your heart, just your heart energy, this energy in the space in your chest where a lot of emotions are felt and stored. Imagine that it's moving, that you have your own internal system going on here. And that in the center of that, like a pinwheel, there's a hole. There's a hole that goes straight through and out your back, okay? So if you want to close your eyes and come into yourself, we're really gonna make this a visualization. You can take some breaths here. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your seat and the weight of your body against the chair, whatever you're sitting on. Feel your weight there. Feel your spine holding you up. You're supported here. I want you to turn your attention toward this space in the center of your chest. This is your heart space. You might feel warmth here as you turn your attention. Feel energy circulating around this powerhouse of your body, this center point that keeps your body running. Your heart pumps blood and nourishment and oxygen to every part of your body, to every cell. So I just feel gratitude to our heart for this work that it does. Feel the rhythm there as it beats. I want you to imagine that there is sort of maybe like a paddle wheel or a pinwheel spinning in your chest, that this is the circulation of energy. It's the circulation of nutrients and oxygen. And at the center of that spinning wheel, there's a hole. It's not a hole where anything is missing. No. This hole has value for you. This allows your heart to stay open, to stay running, to stay in movement, to stay healthy. And it allows anything that's not yours, anything unwanted, to just pass through. Just doesn't even doesn't leave a mark. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't hurt you. It just passes through. It's not yours. It's not yours to take. And as you're feeling into this heart space and this keyhole that's there for you to use, you can imagine being in proximity, maybe with someone who you feel like a kind of emotional charge around. Maybe things are difficult between the two of you. Or it may be an interpreting situation that felt emotionally challenging. I just want you to be here with that situation, that emotionally challenging situation, and continue to feel this pinwheel, your heart space open and moving freely with this drain in the center, this hole in the center that allows things to pass right through. So it allows the energy of the situation to pass through. You don't have to resist it. You don't have to force against it. You don't have to protect yourself. You just have to let it go. Just let it go through. And as you've had a chance to connect with this heart center and your own unique keyhole that's there for you, you can thank it, feel gratitude, maybe even put your hand on your chest right now. Feel the warmth of your own hand. This releases oxytocin in your body. This is love and trust chemicals that you're releasing, hormones that you're triggering right now just by touching your own chest, putting your hand on your heart. And you can go ahead and wiggle your fingers and your toes. We'll come back together here. Okay. I want you to spend a moment thinking about maybe writing on your paper or sharing in the chat about what that visualization felt like for you. And what did that do for you? How did it feel to actually allow energy to pass through instead of resisting or protecting against it? As you think about that, if you would go ahead and share in the chat or unmute yourself and Tell us, what did that feel like to have a hole in the center of your chest that allows those difficult feelings to pass through, that you don't have to take responsibility for them? Mitha says, it felt less stressful because I wasn't in that struggle against my emotions and reactions. Before, it felt like two battles, one internal and another external with others. It was very liberating. Oh, Mitha, that's such a beautiful way to describe it. It really is like two battles, like two struggles. There's this internal tension, and then there's this tension externally. I love that description. Thank you. Yeah, it can be really liberating. Elizabeth says, I feel lighter, not wanting to dread my days. Yes. Yeah, that's so great. Anything that brings more lightness, move toward that. That's a good sign. I love that. Anybody else have an experience you want to share or would be willing to share? It's really helpful for everyone. I'll keep an eye on the chat. And just say here, I love this photo. So as we start peeling away these layers, as we start letting go of some of this responsibility for other people's emotion, and really taking responsibility for ourselves and taking responsibility for our own emotions and how our internal world feels, which then we become a reflection of as we move out into the world. Everything we do in here is a gift to anyone who's around us. So it's just like this clear, look at this beautiful clear water. It's just such a perfect reflection of the beauty that's all around. And so that's the stillness that can happen internally as we develop this grace and this compassion for ourselves. It just spills out to others. So then as we go into the world and we interpret, we are a much more clear conduit. We can actually interpret what people are saying and what they're meaning and what they're feeling. And it can be theirs and theirs, and it doesn't have to be ours, and it doesn't have to trigger and stir up all that muck that muddies the waters. We can be just a very clear conduit. We can then extend this grace and compassion that we've developed. We can extend that to others, which means that we can hear and see with more neutrality, with less judgment, with less attachment to things needing to happen a certain way in order to be okay. There's flexibility, there's a resilience that emerges, and you become like a firmly rooted tree that can sway with the wind and bend, but not break. Okay, that's our goal. Okay. So I want to talk about the practice that you all get to embark on this week. It's going to be a 7-day, I wrote plus, 7-day plus, because you may just choose to keep doing it. You might not want to stop after 7 days. But 7 days for your CEUs, 7-day practice. So you're going to commit to a mindfulness practice for 5 to 10 minutes a day. And this is focused practice. So you might decide that you want to sit every morning as soon as you get up for 5 minutes. And that's your practice. You might decide that on your daily walk 5 minutes of that is going to be a mindfulness practice. You might decide that your bath time is going to be your mindfulness practice. It can really look a lot of different ways. And if you took a look at the resources, the resource list for this follow-up practice, you'll see there's lots of options there. And you'll find that link in the email that I sent to you. It's probably in several of the emails is the resource list. And yeah, you'll find that there. So you're going to have some pre-questions before you do your mindfulness practice. You're going to ask yourself a couple questions and just write down the answers. And you might want to get a little notebook that's dedicated to this course, this practice, so that you can track more easily. But these pre and post questions are going to be really good data for you. This is an experiment. This is an experiment to see, does this practice help me go through my life and feel more grounded, feel more peaceful, feel less affected by other people's stuff? Like, you can really see the evidence, the data, which can be really helpful for our brains as we're adopting new habits. So the pre-questions, they're real simple, and I don't want you to spend much time on them. They shouldn't take you longer than 1 minute to answer all of them. You can take as long as you want to really get into this, that's fine, but don't feel like you have to spend a bunch of time. I want this to feel doable. So the pre-questions, before you do your mindfulness practice, I want you to ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Emotionally and physically. Use emotions and sensation words to describe. How is my body feeling? Like, I'm feeling tense, feeling anxious, there's a knot in my stomach, my shoulder hurts, whatever it is that you're feeling in your body. Write down some words to describe that. And then rate your emotional comfort on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 means you're the most emotionally uncomfortable that you can imagine. You're just so sad, or you're so angry, or you're, just some kind of very emotionally uncomfortable. Up to 10 being the most emotionally comfortable you could imagine. So you're going to rate yourself on that scale, emotional comfort, and then physical comfort. How's your body feeling? Rate it 1 to 10. Same kind of scale. And then I want you to do your mindfulness practice. So whatever it is that you've chosen, do that practice. So this whole total, it should take 15 minutes. So you can vary your practice between 5 and 10 minutes a day, or maybe you start out with 5 minutes a day for the first 2 days, and then you work your way up to 10 minutes a day. You have, lots of autonomy over how you apply this, but somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes spend in mindfulness. And there's lots of links in the resource sheet to choose from or come up with your own. Whatever it is, do it consistently. And I think it's helpful if you do the same thing every day for these 7 days, because then you're going to do post questions. So after your mindfulness practice, I want you to rate the same things again. How are you feeling right now, emotionally and physically? Rate yourself 1 to 10, emotional comfort and physical comfort. You know what? I forgot to say something. In the pre-questions, there's also a question about, how was your last interpreting experience? How did it feel? And so just think back, if you had an interpreting experience in the last day since you did your last mindfulness practice, how was it? And there's a question, I think, about rating it, but it gives a little bit of information about how is this affecting my work too. So you can just be curious about if at the end of 7 days, if it has had an effect on your experience of interpreting as well. So then you have your post-meditation questions, post-mindfulness questions, and you can write down anything that came up during your mindfulness practice that day. So some days I notice my mind is really active, and it's more of a challenge to just, I just keep bringing it back. When I notice my mind has gone off somewhere, I come back to my breath and I focus on my breath for as long as I can stay there, and then my mind goes off. It's like training a dog or a wild horse or something. Being really gentle with a toddler. Like, it doesn't stay focused for very long. That's just the way that minds work. So some days you might find my mind was very active today, and I just kept going back to this, this thing that I'm worried about, or whatever it is. So you can answer the question, what came up in your meditation today? What kinds of themes or ahas or challenges did you notice? And then at the end of the week, after you've done this for 7 days and you've collected your data and you've got some themes and some, just experience with this, I want you to write a 1-page reflection paper. And this isn't school. There's no MLA formatting or anything like that. It could be bullet points. However you want to format it is fine. Some questions for inspiration. None of these are required. This is really, I want the goal of this paper to be for you to distill and solidify this experience that you've had of 7 days of giving yourself 15 focused minutes every day of being with yourself. That's what it is. You've given yourself 15 minutes of love every day for 7 days. What did you learn from that? How did that affect you? So some of the questions that you can write about: what themes came up in your meditations this week? What did you notice as you listened to yourself? What felt helpful? What felt challenging? What was your average emotional and physical comfort before or after? You could compare data if you want. What effect did you notice in your daily life, outside of that mindfulness time? How did this affect the way you dealt with your partner or your kids or your friends or your teacher or your coworkers? What effect did that have on your daily life? And what effect did you notice on your interpreting work? Those are just some questions to ponder and to write about. Feel free to go on what feels right. And then the due date for your paper is 5 p.m. I'm in Pacific time. I don't really care what time zone you send it to me in at 5 p.m. If it's in by 5 p.m. Eastern time, that's fine with me too. Sometime that evening, December 22nd. And that is a hard stop on this assignment. I want to get those all in over that weekend so that my CEU processor can get them processed by the end of the year so that everybody gets their CEUs for 2017. And you can send that to my email address, which is listed here. You also all have emails from me. And any questions along the way, anything you notice, anything you want to dialogue with me about, I'm here for you. Please feel free to reach out and to email me at any point. And I'm going to turn off the screen sharing and I'm going to come in where I can see all of you. Yay. Okay. Let's see. Now we're all here on my screen together. Yay. Great. So I wonder, can everyone unmute yourselves and we can just have a little closing together? I know it's been a long time sitting here together, but thank you for being here. And I just want to close and ask, what are you taking away from this? If there was one piece that feels helpful or relevant in terms of what you learned or in terms of something that you discovered about yourself? What are you taking away?
To have time for myself.
Yeah.
To step back and relax and think for a minute, analyze things. Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thanks. What else? I know a lot of you have done a lot of this work already. I love that. And what you bring to the group and the things you've already learned about this are just so helpful and inspiring. Hopefully this helped to deepen that practice for each of you and definitely, Elizabeth, I'm so glad that you said that. If there's one thing that you can take away from this, I hope that it is that you are each worthy of that time and that care for taking even just 15 minutes for yourself every day. Yeah. Any questions about any of the practices or the homework that's coming up? Does that all feel clear?
No, I'm just looking forward to it. And I had a couple of things that I've been wanting to try. So this kind of encourages me to do it even more.
Great. I'm so glad. Yeah. And for anyone who already has a mindfulness practice or, incorporates things like this, I just welcome you to use this as a chance, to dive into something new, maybe that you haven't gotten to practice before. Just use it as a way to deepen that. So whether this is your first time or you're already practicing mindfulness, hopefully this can help to deepen it. Yeah, good. Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. Really, really enjoyed this time together, and know that I'm here. Email me at any time if you have questions, and if not, I'll look forward to all of your papers. Okay. Yeah, take care. Have a great day, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.